Kora sat at her station, staring into the glow of her computer screens. With a sigh, she asked her AI assistant for an update about the outside world. The AI calmly responded, "Nothing important has happened." Her face dropped in disappointment. Then, out of nowhere, the AI added that connection with the central system had been lost, and not just recently. There hadn't been a signal for 3 whole days. Shocked, Kora jumped in panic, demanding why she wasn't told sooner. The AI, in its usual flat tone, replied, "I assumed the information wasn't urgent." Frustrated and wide-eyed, Kora scrambled to fix the issue herself, typing furiously. But nothing worked. All she could do was wait and hope the signal returned. With a heavy breath, she stood up and told the AI to play anything. The AI began narrating old records, describing how the world's population exploded into the billions, turning survival into a brutal challenge. Kora stared at the screen, imagining what life must have looked like back then. The AI answered, "It was very different." But before she could ask more, the system glitched and shut down again. Kora didn't even flinch. This happened every day. After that, Kora went through the same routine she had followed for years, working out, ticking off daily tasks, and keeping herself busy in the silence. Then, she played a video on her computer. It explained how, one night, a strange mist spread across the planet, wiping out human bodies in mere hours. Only a handful of survivors made it, now trapped in underground bunkers, clinging to hope that humanity could still be saved one day. More days passed, but still, nothing from headquarters. The silence stretched on. Finally, Kora made a bold decision. She was done waiting. She was going outside. Before stepping out, she verified her identity through her ID badge, which confirmed her role. She was authorized to repair a nearby facility. She suited up in full protective gear, covering herself completely. Her oxygen mask clicked into place. This was the only way to survive out there. The moment she stepped outside, her heart sank. Everything looked exactly the same, dead quiet, abandoned, lifeless. The air was thick with that haunting mist, making it almost impossible to see ahead. Determined, she walked toward the equipment, ready to fix it, but quickly realized the job was too big for her alone. Just then, out of the mist, a drone zipped by carrying a supply package. Kora frantically waved, catching its attention. It dropped the box, and inside were life-saving supplies, food, water, and essentials. Grabbing it tightly, she hurried back into the safety of her bunker. Later, Kora pulled up a tutorial on her computer, hoping to figure out how to contact a technician who could handle the repairs. But out of nowhere, error message. Her entire system glitched, and every screen went black. All her computers shut down at once. Panic surged through her chest. She rushed to reboot the system, trying every trick she knew, but nothing worked. Nothing. Out of breath and furious, she turned to her AI and snapped, saying she was going to visit the nearest neighbor. The AI instantly responded, "That's against protocol. Contact with other members is strictly forbidden." But Kora had reached her limit. Desperate, she yelled, "What other choice do I have?" Then, without hesitation, she commanded, "You're coming with me." The AI agreed. Kora threw on her protective gear, zipped up her suit, and grabbed her oxygen mask. Just as she reached for the door, her computer powered back on, flickering to life. But she didn't stop. She didn't even look back. She was done feeling trapped and abandoned. No contact, no answers. It was time to act. Before leaving, Kora grabbed handfuls of trash and scattered it over the entrance of her underground shelter, hoping it would keep curious eyes away. Then, without looking back, she set off, walking a long distance through tangled grass and thick bushes. Her drone hovered above, scanning the terrain and guiding her every step. After what felt like forever, she finally reached the location of her nearest neighbor. Panting from exhaustion, she moved closer and stopped dead in her tracks. The entrance was wide open, and the entire basement was flooded. Water filled the room, with furniture and personal items floating helplessly on the surface. Something was terribly wrong. Kora's heart pounded as she checked her device and followed directions to a nearby tower. She climbed the stairs, one step at a time, her legs trembling. At the top, she spotted someone slumped over a desk. Her stomach dropped. As she stepped closer, she recognized him. It was the man she had come to find. A gunshot wound marked his head. He was gone. Shaken, Kora spotted a handwritten letter on the desk. It was addressed to whoever finds this. In it, he wrote, "I still don't know what us worse discovering the truth or realizing no one cared enough to contact me." He explained how their employers had completely abandoned the project, leaving them to rot in silence. He had tried reaching the other stations, but with his shelter flooded, he had nowhere left to go. In his final words, he confessed, "We'll never save the world like we dreamed. All those years of work wasted." Kora's hands trembled as she finished reading the letter. Panic surged through her. She grabbed the radio, calling out desperately to any remaining stations, but there was only silence. Static hissed back at her like a cruel reminder that no one was listening. Before leaving, she took one last look at the lifeless body slumped over the desk. "I'm sorry, Tim," she whispered, her voice shaking. Then, without another word, she turned and made her way down the tower. For a while, Kora wandered aimlessly, completely unsure of what to do. The weight of everything pressed down on her like never before. But then she decided she wouldn't go back home. She opened her device and stated clearly she was heading to headquarters. It was a journey that would take an entire day. With her drone still flying ahead, scanning the area, Kora pressed on. But suddenly movement in the distance. She froze and dropped into the bushes. A group of armed gang members marched past, scanning the land like predators. They were looking for supplies, or oxygen, maybe both. Her heart pounded until they were gone. Once the danger passed, she stepped out and kept moving. Finally, she reached the headquarters. The place was eerily quiet, abandoned. She walked inside, cautiously looking around. No people, no voices, only computer screens flashing with cold, mechanical messages. The orders were clear: stop all efforts to stop the mist. Leave immediately through the nearest exit. Another screen added: leadership has already evacuated. All employees must follow. Kora's breath caught in her throat. She screamed raw and furious, betrayed, completely abandoned without a single answer. Then she felt it, a chilling presence behind her. Slowly, she turned around, and there they were, the same gang members she had seen earlier, standing at the entrance watching her. Ask chat gap. Kora didn't flinch. She aimed her gun directly at the intruders. One of them stepped forward, pretending the weapon wasn't even there. She didn't wait. Bang! She shot him in the leg, but unbelievably he kept coming. Heart racing, she fired again this time. The shot hit hard and dropped him dead on the spot. Another gang member charged without fear. Kora fired again. Down she went. Seeing his comrades fall, the third thug froze, wide-eyed. Then he turned and bolted, disappearing into the shadows without a word. Kora's breathing was sharp and fast. This was no longer just a threat, it was war. She had to get back to her base immediately. But on her way back, her path was suddenly blocked. A stranger stepped out, smiling. "I'm Blake," the woman said calmly. Before Kora could even move, more gang members lunged out from the shadows. They grabbed her, slamming punches into her stomach and ribs. Gasping for air, Kora struggled, but then Blake pulled out a syringe and plunged it into her arm. Everything went black. Sometime later, Kora came to. She was tied to a chair, wrists burning. In front of her stood a bald man with a lean, muscular frame. His eyes were cold. "I'm Joseph," he said. He began his interrogation, digging for answers. After realizing she worked for the people he hated, he leaned in and said, "Let me tell you a story." Years ago, Joseph had begged them, pleaded to let him be part of their mission. He wanted to help save humanity, but instead, they turned their backs on him. They rejected him and tossed him out into the mist like garbage, along with others they labeled unworthy. Ever since, he had carried a burning hatred for them, and now for Kora. His voice sharp, Joseph barked, "Call your drone, now." Kora hesitated, hands trembling, but she knew she had no choice. Slowly, she pressed her device. The drone was summoned. Satisfied, Joseph turned to Blake and ordered, "Watch her. Don't kill her yet." Then he walked out of the room without another word. As soon as the door closed, Kora sat still, watching and waiting. Then the moment was right. With a fierce cry, she lifted the heavy chair she was tied to and slammed it into Blake. The blow knocked her down dead instantly. Wasting no time, Kora freed herself and crept out into the hallway. She moved fast, trying to stay quiet, but just ahead another gang member. He didn't see her. Kora rushed in from behind and took him down, but the noise echoed too loud. Within seconds, shouting filled the air. More gang members were coming. She froze. No plan, no weapons, nowhere to hide. Then gunfire. Bullets flew past as Kora crouched in fear. A drone swooped in and shot one of the attackers. But before she could breathe, another gang member rushed her with a bat. He raised it high, ready to crush her until suddenly, bang. The woman collapsed from a shot fired by someone hidden in the shadows. Kora's heart raced. Who just saved her? Suddenly, out of the chaos, a woman stepped into view and she looked exactly like Kora. The resemblance was shocking. "Follow me," the woman shouted. Without hesitation, they sprinted toward a nearby building as gunfire blazed behind them. But in the chaos, they got separated, bullets tearing through the air. Kora was grabbed by a man who threw her into a brutal hand-to-hand fight. He swung wildly, but she moved fast, ripping off his mask. Within seconds, his skin began to blister and swell. His face puffed up horribly and then he collapsed, dead in seconds. Meanwhile, the other woman, Kora's mysterious twin, took down a gang member who had been firing non-stop. She moved with deadly precision and didn't miss a beat. Just then, Joseph stormed onto the scene, eyes blazing. "What is going on?" he yelled. His men scrambled, shouting back that they were under attack. Furious, Joseph jumped into the battle, but before he could strike, Kora stabbed him. She rammed a stick into his gut and sent him crashing to the floor. In his last act of revenge, Joseph smashed the device Kora used to command her drone. Sparks flew as it broke apart in his hand. But instead of finishing him, Kora stepped back. She didn't need revenge, she needed answers. Without looking back, she ran after the woman who saved her. After they escaped and ran a safe distance, Kora stopped, breathless and overwhelmed. "Who are you? Why do you look exactly like me?" The woman locked eyes with her. "We need to get somewhere safer first," she said firmly. "Once we're there, I'll tell you everything." Once they reached a secure hiding spot, the mysterious woman finally turned to Kora. It was time for answers. "What's your name?" she asked. "Kora 1," Kora replied, still catching her breath. The woman nodded slowly. "I'm Kora B7. Kora froze, completely stunned. B7 continued, dropping the truth like a bomb. They were both clones, created for something called the Kora Project. Kora's mind reeled. Her heart pounded. She struggled to believe it. Could it really be true? Was she not even real? Her voice barely a whisper. B7 explained further. "Everything you remember, it was planted. None of it actually happened. We were made to believe we had lives and a past, just so we'd never question anything." Kora stared at her, speechless. This couldn't be happening. B7 went on. "The rules, the protocols that kept us apart, that wasn't about safety, it was to stop us from discovering the truth." It all started to click. Kora felt like her whole world had collapsed. Everything she believed in was a lie. But B7 wasn't done. "We need to find the people who started this. Wherever they are hiding, it has to be better than this broken world." Then, she pulled out a map, a complete layout of the entire site. They picked a destination, a massive complex building that might hold the truth. If they came up empty, they had one last hope, a hill nearby that might show them what lies beyond. They settled in for the night, agreeing to wake early and begin their journey at dawn. After walking for miles, they finally arrived at the complex. Cautiously, they stepped inside. It was silent, too silent. The building looked abandoned. Then suddenly a voice echoed around them. "Stop right there," a man shouted. "Turn on the screen on the wall or I'll shoot." Ask Chat Gap. B7 paused, her finger hovering over the switch. Then she gave in and did as the voice commanded. The screen lit up, and a man's face appeared. "I'm Adon," he said calmly, as sharp. He claimed they had nothing to fear as long as they agreed to join his group. He spoke smoothly, promising comfort and safety, boasting about having all the food and supplies anyone could need. "Let go of your illusions," he urged. "Accept the truth." But B7 didn't buy it, not for a second. Without warning, she drew her gun and fired, taking out one of Adon's men instantly. The room erupted into chaos. Gunfire exploded from every direction. People screamed and dropped to the ground one by one. The battle devoured the room. After heavy losses, Adon raised his hands in defeat. "Enough," he shouted. He kept his word and let them walk away. But just as they were about to exit, B7 turned and fired again, killing a wounded girl on the ground. Kora stared in shock but said nothing. There was no time. She led the way toward the hill, their final hope. B7 stumbled behind her, injured and growing weaker with every step. The climb was brutal, the air thin and heavy. Finally, they reached the top. B7 collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. She looked up at Kora, barely able to speak. "What do you see? Beyond the hill?" she whispered, eyes full of desperate hope. Ask Chat Gap. Kora stood silently, taking it all in. Then, with wide eyes and a trembling voice, she turned to B7. "You did it. You really did it," she whispered, her voice full of disbelief and awe. "Beyond the hill there's life, real life, kids playing, animals running free, blue skies without a trace of mist, no masks, no fear." B7 smiled faintly, then let out one final breath and died in Kora's arms. Kora's heart dropped. Her smile vanished as reality crashed down. She looked at B7's lifeless body, then slowly turned her gaze back toward the horizon. But what she saw stole her breath for all the wrong reasons. There was nothing, just dry, empty land stretching as far as the eye could see. No children, no animals, no life, only desolation. Kora didn't speak. Her body moved on its own as she turned and walked away back toward the place she once called home. She arrived at her bunker, drained and numb, but something was off. Her eyes narrowed. The basement door was wide open, heart pounding. She rushed inside only to freeze at the sight before her. Joseph was sitting comfortably on her couch, surrounded by spilled supplies and chaos. His expression was chilling. "You should have finished me," he said, grinning. "Now look what you've done. I used everything, your oxygen, your food. There's nothing left. You won't survive either." Kora's voice shook. "Why would you do this?" Joseph laughed bitterly. "I was already dying, but knowing you'll die too, that's the only peace I'll get." Bang! Without a second thought, Kora pulled out her gun and shot him in the head, ending it instantly. She stood there, breathing hard, but then her breath caught. Her oxygen was gone. With no choice, she ripped off her mask and held her breath. Her lungs burned. Then, she breathed in, and nothing happened. No pain, no choking. The mist was gone. To her shock, nothing happens. She breathes and lives. The mist is gone. Heart racing, Kora bolts to her computer. She pulls up the security cameras, desperate to confirm what she just felt. What she sees leaves her frozen in disbelief. The once deadly fog has vanished completely. She turns to her mask, staring at it in silence, wondering if this is truly real. The end.